present to you America's quintessential iconoclastic anomaly. Wow. In talk radio, your host, Joe Cristiano.
Welcome, everyone, to Liberty Talk Radio, America's libertarian voice, broadcasting from our studio in Tulsa, Oklahoma, to around the world. I'm your host, Joe Cristiano, and this is your antidote to popular talk radio. Folks, it's time for us to take back control of our government now before this bureaucratic, oversized, and self-serving federal government starves us of our property, our freedom, our rights, and our liberty. But to do this, we must shed conventional thinking regarding our political structure. We need to be revolutionaries in thought, dissidents in action. Only after we recognize what our government is doing to our freedom and our Constitution will we start taking it back. And this program is just about that. Today we're pleased to have a returning guest and economist Andy Sutton, formerly of the financial community, however now involved with the sole purpose of blowing the whistle on corruption and helping people around the globe become their own advocates. Andy, welcome back to Liberty Talk Radio.
Joe, it's fantastic to be here again as always. I appreciate it.
All right,
thank you.
Believe me, our pleasure. Well, since all the political and economic problems have been solved, I have no idea what we're going to be able to talk about.
Well, I think there's a crochet club meeting tonight here in town.
Well, you know, I'm getting more and more concerned. I'm a closet economist. I don't know nearly as much as you do, but I learned so much from you. I feel like I'm a quasi-economist. I'm getting more and more concerned. It looks like time is running out. I hate to sound like, because they say, oh, you're a doom and gloomer, and I hate when people say that. But when you look at all of the numbers, everything from the debt, when you look at the real job numbers, when you look at the jobs, types of jobs that are being created, when you look at the trade numbers, when you look at the Baltic Dry Index, I mean, I can go on for an hour. None of them are good. But the government, the mainstream media, will pick one number out and say, well, this improved by 1/3 of 1%. Let's megaphone that out there to everybody and tell everything. We're in a recovery. But it really isn't that way. And in fact, we are on the precipice of possibly a collapse that cannot be saved, cannot be reversed, and may last for a decade or more and place most people in harm's way in an abject poverty. Now, am I overstating the situation?
No, you're not. And that's one of the things that, it's concerned me for 10 years. It's one of the reasons why I started writing about this stuff 10 years ago and why we continue to do it. I mean, it sounds like we're beating a dead horse, but the problem is the horse wasn't dead when we started beating it. It still isn't dead. But the problem is it seems like fewer and fewer people really are receptive to try even being willing to understand it. I mean, there was a lot of people, I'm sure you've seen the same thing. You go through this, people are gung-ho, they want to learn, they want to get on board with things, and then they kind of fade away after a while. They get exhausted. And I think that's what's happened. Now, this has gone on so long. It has been persistent crisis for the last decade, literally. I mean, we had just one thing, whether it was here or somewhere else. Now we got this thing with the Russians. Oh, we're going to hack the Russians? Hey, John Kerry, why don't you shut your big mouth for once?
Right.
I mean, really? We're going to hack the Russians? Is that your solution, John Kerry?
Yeah. Well, what disturbs me, I heard today that the Oklahoma National Guard, which reports to the governor, I mean, it's a state militia, basically. That's your state militia, if you will, your formal state militia. They are asking for volunteers to go over to the Ukraine to train, not to fight, but just to train people there, I don't know what they're training them for or whatever, but now could you imagine if the Russians sent their militia over to Mexico to train some group? I mean, they would be instant nuclear war. I mean, and yet we do this with impunity and because we're the policemen of the world and we want to help these poor people. They need us. Of course, Ukraine is 3 or 4 miles from the Mississippi River. What the heck are we doing there in the first place?
Well, see, this has been a policy that's been going on since 1990. The New World Order. Bush talked about it. The old Bush. He talked about it, and that was what they were talking about. They were talking about this hegemony issue, whether I mean, we've had currency hegemony. You've heard the term dollar hegemony. I'm sure many people have. There's also another kind of hegemony, and that's military hegemony. And we're going to go around, and we're basically going to we're going to put the world, for lack of a better term, and this is probably going to shock some people, we're going to put the world in a state of martial law. I mean, yeah, you can do stuff. You can go to the park, blah, blah, blah. You can fish, hunt, whatever you want. But when you really look at it, what's happened to freedom and liberty over the past 25 years? I mean, 25 years ago, I was a sophomore in college, taking a political science class and hearing this for the first time. And what's happened since then is just globally is unreal. And what interests me, and it really casts the pall of hypocrisy on this whole thing, is the fact that, you take places where there's real human rights violations going on. Burkina Faso, is one of them. There's many others. That was the first one that popped into my head. We're not anywhere to be found. Where's the great liberators? Where are the great liberators? Where are the great congressmen? Emphasis on con. Where are the congressmen of the United States? Where's John Kerry? Running his big fat mouth when it comes to, places like this where you have these tin pot little, Liberia is another example, tin pot little dictators, running roughshod over their people. Where's the world police? Then, well, you don't see them. Well, why? Why? Well, because they don't have what we want. They either have some sort of geographic strategic location like Syria, and if you want to get into that, I'll be more than happy to explain a piece that was written 3.5 years ago explaining why Russia was never going to leave Syria's side. And now we're fighting in Syria. We are fighting the Russians. Who's ISIS? We had a presidential candidate like a month ago come out and says, well, yeah, America created ISIS. Well, who's everybody fighting over there? Who are the Russians fighting? They're fighting ISIS.
Yeah.
What are they fighting? They're fighting us.
Yeah, that's right.
This is no Cold War, Joe. It's a hot war.
That's right.
Yeah, they got MiGs, we got our things, whatever. It's not the U.S. versus Russia, but it's our puppet versus Russia. People don't understand that. We're this close. And everybody's running there. Oh, we need to launch cyber attacks against Russia. And Russia has hacked their way into the election system. I'm telling you, this, and I've talked to a couple of people about this, and they would know. And they're not sources. I don't have sources, so just forget that. These are smart people that have studied this stuff for a long time. And they said there's more tension now with Russia over economic issues just alone than there was during the Cuban Missile Crisis back in 61, 62, when everybody was building bomb shelters. I mean, it is bad. And these guys, they keep running their mouths. And it's like, you know what? You're poking the rattlesnake with a sharp stick. And you know what? Who's going to pay?
When Gerald Celente mentions this continually, repeatedly, and he says, when all else fails, they take us to war. But that's so true.
Absolutely.
It's absolutely true. When things get really bad, they know there's a probability that the people may erupt in some sort of uprising, so they take us to war and they wave the flag, and then everyone has to get behind the government, so because we're true Americans and we're right, and we're going to get those bad guys overseas. And no one wants to ask question, who's the bad guy? Why are they the bad guy? And what the hell are we doing there in the first place?
See, this is the thing that, how do I say this delicately? Ron Paul, good man, good man, as far as men are concerned, ran on this platform of non-interventionism. Basically being friendly with neighbors, no doubt, but not this. He was against this whole warfare state. And he was very popular amongst younger people. They kind of got that whole, people say, well, it's just the peaceniks coming out, the anti-Vietnam War protesters, blah, blah, blah. It's their kids, blah. But you know what the thing is? this is where the joke is on the rest of these clowns. Ron Paul was right. And what do you have now? You got two chicken hawk warmongers. There's 6 people that can win the Oval Office a month from now, less than a month from now. You only hear about 2 of them. They get to debate. Nobody else does. Nobody else. Everybody else is excluded. One of the party's candidates got arrested at the first presidential debate for protesting because she was not allowed to debate with the rest of them. Why? Why is that? It's because the choice has already been made. You got a schmuck, you got another schmuck. You're going to choose between schmucks.
We got a schmuck and a schmuckette.
You got a schmuckette, a career criminal.
Yeah.
The FBI said, you're irresponsible. They wouldn't call her a criminal because, we're not going to go there. I'd like to be alive tomorrow, honestly.
Yeah.
And then you got a buffoon, all right? A buffoon. And this is the best that America has. It's a figurehead position, and everybody's focusing on the figurehead position, while the people that call the shots are the ones you don't even know their names. You don't hear them. You don't see them on TV. You hear their front man, George Soros, he's their front man. Guess who's fomenting and paying for all this discord that's going on, the Black Lives Matter and all that stuff? He's paying for that. He's stirring up hatred in this country. He's paying for it out of his own pocket. I'm of the opinion that all lives matter. If people don't like it, that's tough. Everybody matters or nobody matters. And that's how it has to be. And this is what they want to do. See, they understand that we've been in a depression for 10 years. They've hidden it with credit, all right? Excess credit, largesse, government spending, deficits, whatever you want to call it. We've been in a depression for 10 years. Ask the people that are homeless. Ask people who are living in their cars. Ask the people with $100,000 of student loan debt, can't find a job.
Right.
They're working at McDonald's and living with mom and dad. Ask these people. They'll tell you all about it. It's a depression for them. But for 2 or 3%, it's not a depression. I'm fortunate enough to scrape by in a subsistence level of living here, and the only reason we're able to do that is because we don't have any debt.
That's right. Same with
That's
me.
the thing. It's a choke collar, and they've got it around this country's neck. And you and I have been talking for this, and I don't care if people say, oh, there goes that crazy bald guy again, talking about debt. It is choking this country. It is choking families. It is choking communities. It is choking our states. It's choking our nation. It's choking our world. And the one question that people don't ask, who's all this money owed to? Who's it owed to? Really? The U.S. government alone, $20 trillion. Who's it owed to? I mean, the IMF, that another criminal, Lagarde, she just come out and said global debt was like 152 trillion or something like that. Right, yeah. And I'm sure Professor Kolikoff will do a much better job than myself of giving you exact numbers and
I may interrupt. About 2 years, about a year or two years ago, when he was on, he's going to be on my show. In fact, the day after tomorrow, and he's running for president as a writing candidate, which is great. Yeah, but I remember about 2 years ago, he talked about the long-term debt, the total debt being I never forget the number, $223 trillion. That's almost, now it's probably over that amount of money, the way he calculates it.
Yeah,
that makes it over $1/4 quadrillion. At one time, we couldn't say a billion because it was a bad word, because a billion was just too high. Now we talk about trillions like they're hundreds, and now we're into the quadrillion arena. What happens, Andy, when you can't go any further and there's a collapse in the currency, and people who think they actually have things of value, like a brand new car that they owe money on, and the whole system collapses? Do we just go to war with everyone just to distract everyone? I mean, it scares me because it's going to happen, and I feel like it's going to happen soon, within the next year.
It's not going to happen. It is happening.
Okay.
It has been happening. This is a slow burn. See, everybody, and this is one of the gripes that I have with a lot of people, and you know what? A lot of these guys are well-intended. I'm not questioning their heart, their intentions, whatever. The crash scenario where you wake up one morning and it's very alluring, especially this time of year for some reason, because, I mean, let's face it, when bad stuff has happened, when does it happen? It's in the fall. It's in September. It's in October, November even. But look at what's gone on over the last decade. We have been in a crash since the last decade. Over the past decade, it's been slow. It's an incremental crash, so people don't notice it as much. My wife just went to the store, one of those big box stores, this morning actually, and she hasn't been in that particular store for a while. And she's called me a little while back and said, I noticed two things in that store. The first being that, they don't really have much inventory. And the second thing is that the cost of everything just skyrocketed. I said, well, see, this is the thing. You haven't been there in a while. It's been a year or two.
Right. See,
so she was shocked.
Yeah.
What? This doubled? Because we buy the same stuff every time.
Right.
So you get to know what the prices are after a while. So even she realized, hey, this doubled, but it's been, see, the thing is, if you're going to that store every week or every other week, you're not noticing it. You take a year off, all of a sudden it's a shock, it's a crash. But it happens over a year or two, people don't notice. And this is what they've been doing. There's this whole big thing with inflation right now, and it cracks me up. I got a guy, great fellow, Peter, in Australia, another great fellow, Ken, in the UK, very pro-Brexit. We became friends over the internet when the Brexit was going on, and he was reading articles that we were writing about that and so forth. And these guys send me dozens of articles a day, and they always apologize. Say, look, don't apologize, because there's always good stuff in there. And you know what? Here's the thing. A couple of months ago, the central bankers, they had their meeting in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. All right? And the big gripe was that globally, and particularly in the United States, there's not enough inflation. All right? Now, today, I'm going to look over here on my other screen here a second, pull this up. And you see that they're complaining that the CPI is over the Fed's limit, what they're willing to tolerate.
I never understand that logic. I guess it makes no sense to me.
Let me tell you. So Grandma Yellen, Ma Yellen was at Jackson Hole 2 months ago or whenever that was, complaining that there wasn't enough inflation, and now out of the other side of her face, she says, well, the CPI is a little too high. It's above our target. They're doing it. They're playing one side against the other. They do it with jobs. They do it with GDP. They do it with, what's the other thing? Prices. There's always a good story, then a bad story. A good story, then a bad story. A good story, then a bad story. And it gives them cover to do nothing. They don't want to raise rates. They're not going to raise rates.
Yeah.
I don't think they'll raise rates until this monetary cycle ends, honestly.
Well, when you say this monetary cycle ends, explain that. Define that for me.
All right. When the dollar is replaced globally as a world reserve currency, and China, Russia, India, Brazil, the BRICS Bank, they're positioning to back a currency with gold. They've been accumulating gold. Everybody's read about it. The Chinese, in particular, have been accumulating a lot, 12,000 tons. They buy. I mean, they just buy gold like it's going out of style.
Right.
Well, they're going to back a currency with this gold, and what's going to happen is that's going to become the preferred currency. Everybody's trying to get away from the dollar, and you notice you try to get away from the dollar, and what happens, Saddam? You get a bomb. You get Sabombed instead of Saddammed. Libya, he wants to go away from the dollar. They cut his throat. They hang him. This is what happens when you try to get away. This is the hegemony.
Right.
When you don't do what we say, when you don't use our system, our economic system, our monetary system, we bomb you. Yeah. We bomb you.
But Andy, hold on one sec. Hold that thought. We have someone on line. Line one? They on line one? Oh, they're online. Well, we have someone holding online, area code 732. Do you want to make a comment or ask a question, please?
That's in Jersey. Get them on the air. See if they want to talk.
Is there a question that you'd like to ask? Area code 732. They still there?
Yes, hello.
Hello? Okay, there you are. Okay, you're on the air. Thank you for calling Liberty Talk Radio. You
Hey,
first.
How you doing? How you doing, Joe and Andy? How's everything?
This is the guy from Jersey, right?
Yeah, it's Joe from Tom's River.
Right. Okay. How you doing? Nice hearing from you.
I'm doing good.
Almost a
I'm doing
neighbor.
Good. How's everybody?
Everyone's fine over here. What? You have a question or a comment to make? You want to make us smart or what?
I completely concur with everything that's, Andy's assessment of everything that's going on. But my question is, I try to talk about these things with my friends and family, and they just don't seem to get it. I mean, does he have any, or you? Do you have any recommendation on, how to wake up my friends and family? I mean, how do we go about enlightening people that sometimes seem like they just don't want to listen? What do we do to get people more awake?
I got an answer for that. Well, maybe a partial answer. What you need to do is, and this is something that's worked for me, and it doesn't work with everybody. So understand that going in. Some people, they're not gonna wake up no matter what you do. But one thing you can do is point to the things in this whole situation that are affecting them, whether it's the interest that they're getting on their retirement. If they're older folks, maybe it's the interest that they're getting on their retirement savings or lack thereof. If it's a family that has working parents and they're struggling to make ends meet and rely on credit, that's an angle you can take. And you can point to information. We've got a whole blog full of stuff of historical information you can point to and say, hey, it didn't used to be like this. Maybe you ought to think about why things changed. Is this progress or are we going backwards here? And just get them thinking. Plant seeds. That's what you got to do. You got to use the things that are affecting them, and then plant seeds, and then get them to think on their own about it. You're not going to convince anybody, or very few, but you plant those seeds, and then they go home, and then they're laying in bed at night, and they're worried about finances or income or whatever, and they start thinking, hey, he said that the other day there, and you know what? That makes sense. You might get some people that way. That's one method I've used that kind of works with people. But again, it doesn't work with everybody, but it will work with some people. So I mean, I would say go first with that.
Yeah.
Tell them what you've experienced. That's another thing. Tell them personal stories. Hey, I went through this, or so and so, a friend of mine, somebody as well. It's a mutual friend, went through this, and this would have never happened except for the fact that we've gone away from gold, as a backing for our currency. People are not taught in schools today any of this stuff. They're not taught real economics. They're taught this garbage. All right. The problem is, and the people that were taught the stuff back in the 60s, the 50s, they've forgotten it because we've gone away from it for so long. They've kind of forgotten what they learned. They're used to the credit card now. They're used to the reverse mortgage. I mean, really, Joe, when did you hear of a reverse mortgage back in your day? I mean, seriously.
You never heard of that? When I was young, younger, I never heard of that. Yeah.
No. I mean, this is a new invention. It's an invention to steal wealth. And this, point them to the blog. And I'm not patting myself on the back. We don't ask for any money. We have no ads. All they can do is they're not going to get bothered by pop-ups, or any kind of request for anything. They can go there, read in peace, and take it for what it's worth. It's a resource. It's there. Please use it. And have direct people to use it.
One thing I have been about totally unsuccessful in preaching to others economic policy, the facts of what's going on, projections of where we're going, trend lines. People don't hear that at all. They just don't listen. But I have been a little bit more successful when I ask them questions. For example, let me take something simple, like when Bernie Sanders was running for president, people say, "Oh, school would be free." I said, "That's great. I wish school was free when I was young, but who's going to pay? How will it? You don't preach to them, but ask them. Say, well, how does that work?" If they go, "Well, I don't know," you say, "Well, what do you mean? Well, how can you be for something that doesn't work? I mean, how does it? Explain to me how does a free college work? Where does the money come from? Explain it to me, because I want to be on the same side as you." In other words, don't bring them over to your side. Say you want to be on their side, but you just don't understand it. If they can explain it, you'd come on board. And then they may start realizing that, well, this doesn't make much sense. Nothing is free. If that's free, if school is free, then cars should be free. Well, say, well, schools could be free. Well, could cars be free? Well, no. Well, why can't cars be free? Well, someone's got to pay for it. Well, does someone have to pay for an education? You can go through that, and just don't preach to them. Don't put them in a corner, but make them stop and think, because they'll never admit it to you, not in a million years. But when they walk away, 2 weeks later, they'll say, it'll bother them. And they'll come back, and they may even ask you a question. It's tough, because we've been all indoctrinated. That they're watching television, they're listening to all this crap about we're going to make America great again, but don't ask me how or why or where or when. Just we're going to make it. Just vote for me, and trust me type thing. And we're that type of culture. We do not think. If you go to Europe and you said the stupid things that we say here in America, they think you're a lunatic, because in Europe they think. They go, well, how are you going to do that? We don't do that.
Well, and here's the thing: the Europeans, they've been, for whatever reason, they're a bit further down this road than we are. So, you go to places like Greece, Italy, Portugal, Spain. They've seen crisis, real crisis. You go to Greece, things are still bad. I have people in Greece that send me emails on a regular basis and tell me what's going on. It is still very bad there economically. They will never recover from that debt that the IMF placed on them for their bailout so they could stay in the EU. And many of those people now believe that their best bet would have been to exit when they had the chance,
right,
instead of taking the IMF's candy. And that's what I would say. I mean, I know there's people all over the world that are going to listen to this eventually. I would say, if you have a chance, get away from these. If we could divorce the Fed tomorrow, I would give up my life to do it. And I'm not talking about violence. If there was a way that we could get this country away from that silly, criminal central bank, I would be willing to give my life to do it. And I say that honestly, because it is going to do nothing but destroy what's left of this country. It's doing it. It's been doing it. I mean, look at what's happened to the dollar in the past 100 years under its stewardship. A dollar doesn't even buy a nickel's worth. These guys are talking about, well, there's not enough inflation. Oh, really? Oh, really? 100% isn't enough inflation. Seriously, Janet? Seriously, Ben? Why don't you break out the Barbasol and the razor and give yourself another shave there, buddy? Because you know what? Nobody's buying your crap.
Yeah. Well, we have another caller on the line. Hey, thank you so much for calling in. And how's the weather in New Jersey, by the way?
Thank you.
How's the weather in Jersey these days? Oh, it's off the air. Okay. Was it line 2? Yeah. Caller, you're on the air. Your first name, please.
Jim, can you hear me?
Oh, Jim. Jim, you're on the air.
Andy, Jim here.
Hey, buddy.
Andy, Jim here. How you doing, my friend?
Not bad. How are you, sir?
Great, thanks. Hey, enjoying the broadcast. I like your feistiness today. You're bringing it. I like it.
I told these guys I was fired up today.
Hey, a couple quick questions. One, out of curiosity, you're a well-informed, smart guy. What are your 2 or 3 or couple of your favorite sources for accurate, trusted news and information?
Good question.
Honestly, the boots on the ground. regular Joes in other countries that, and it's taken years to establish, these kind of quality contacts. They're not sources, they're not insiders, they're just regular people, trying to live, trying to survive, trying to make it in these other countries that, they email in periodically, some daily, some weekly, some monthly, and tell me what's going on. I mean, that's my best first source, is just boots on the ground. I'm also a ham operator, so I like to listen as well, and I hear other conversations, and people are talking about this stuff. You can hear it all the time from different parts of the world. People are talking about this stuff. This is a hot topic with folks. As far as conventional news sources, and I'm going to preface all this with saying that these outlets all have their agendas also. All right, Press TV is one, RT in Russia is another, who just had their bank accounts frozen by the UK, by the way. That was a really nice, classy move by the UK. So they're getting involved in this too. They do a good job, and the reason I like them is not because necessarily I agree with their positions, but because if there's dirt that the U.S. government is covering up, these guys love nothing more than to yank down the pants of the U.S. government, corporations, whatever it is, and expose what's going on here. And that's what our media is supposed to be doing. So they're kind of doing the job that our media is supposed to be doing. Now, unfortunately, what you get with that is you get their bias too. And like I said, I don't agree with a lot of what some of these outlets have to say, but some of the information itself is valuable. So that's mostly where I get what I have to work with here. I pay very little attention to the U.S. media, other than to make comments like the blog post I made last night about the buffoon Minneapolis former Fed president who said this. We'll read the whole thing if you want. It's a joke. My title was "This Belongs in the Onion," because that's how satirical this guy's position is. I mean, it's just craziness. We should talk about that, Joe, because that's kind of a big thing too.
Well, he should go to My 2 Cents by Andy Sutton. I think he'd learn a lot.
Yeah, well, he should go somewhere and learn something, because and the thing is, I understand the guy, because the school I went to, guess what? They taught the same stuff. There was I graduated with there's like a dozen people. It was a small class, decent people. There was like 3 of us that rebelled against the Keynesianism, and that was what was preached, was Keynesianism. All this crap that you hear from the media, that's what I learned in college. I got honors in it, actually. They determined that I was so good at it that I was worthy of honors. But the thing is what it did is it helped me to understand how it's garbage too, and explain that to people, how and why it's a failure. And the comments that come out of these guys, they amaze me, but they don't surprise me, because this is exactly the same stuff that I got taught 20 years ago. So nothing's changed. I mean, really, there's nothing new under the sun here with regards to all of this stuff.
Well, another news media related question, and something that has kind of surfaced in the last decade, is WikiLeaks. What do you make of this most recent thing about how he's been cut off from the internet and stuff going on with the Ecuador embassy? I don't know if I know the full details. I assume you've read the report.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I'm not a political analyst. I've read some of it. I don't know enough details to really say too much about it, other than, if they're trying to cut this guy off, chances are he probably has something to say that they really don't want said. And, he's been releasing in his group. I mean, it's not just him, it's a group. They've been releasing a lot of information about different sensitive issues that are going on. And, maybe it's meant to bump the election. Who knows? I mean, I don't get too involved in that stuff, because it's too in the ethereal. There's not enough concrete stuff to really wrap your hand around to analyze. and that's what I like to do. I like to analyze. You can't really analyze that stuff because you don't know what people's motives are. You don't know how accurate everything is. Some of it might be sensationalized. Some of it might be dead on. I don't know. I don't have any way of verifying it.
Yeah.
These people are, the people that are being leaked about obviously aren't going to tell the truth. We know that. We don't have to analyze that.
Yeah.
We know they're not going to fess up. So I really don't have much of an opinion on that, unfortunately.
Yeah, Jim, in your business, do you see the effects of the economy in your business at all, or has nothing changed in the past few years?
Oh yeah, it's been significant. It's been pretty significant. A lot of my business on the front end, I help companies with their hiring process, and of course we've had with the downturn in the oil industry, which Oklahoma is so heavily involved in. There's been, but of course that has a trickle down effect to all the support industries, including mine. So yeah, it's had a dramatic effect. This is my worst year in 6, 7, 8 years, and so I've got to find other. I have other services that aren't tied directly to hiring, but there's reduction in force, cutbacks, budget cuts. My son got laid off from Cisco. They had a 5,500 employee headcount reduction last month. So yeah, it's not exactly a thriving economy.
What type of job did your son have, Jim, at Cisco? What type of job did he have? Was he a manager? Was he a programmer?
He was a virtual sales engineer in their telephonic division.
Wow, that sounds heavy duty. I don't even know what that is. It sounds so heavy duty.
Sales support role.
Okay. Well, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we'll talk more about that, Joe. But lastly, I think since Andy, assuming that you'll be on again latter part of next month, we can talk about the Italy vote about leaving the EU. So let's maybe save that for next month. But Joe wasn't going to ask it. He's lost sleep the last few weeks about Harry Dent's prediction that deflation is going to drive gold down to $200. And prognosticators, forecasters are all over the place. But any thought as to what could possibly happen to drive commodities like that down so low? And I won't ask any more questions and enjoy the rest of the show.
Thank you, Jim.
That's a good question, Jim. I mean, honestly, what the problem with gold, if there is a problem, is that it's associated with paper and futures contracts. And futures contracts are used to manipulate stock markets. They're used to manipulate the bond market. They're used to manipulate currency markets, interest rates, you name it. There's a contract out on it. There might even be a contract out on this show. How this show goes. There might be a future on, if Joe and Andy end up, going to fisticuffs by the end of the show or something. But in all seriousness, I don't see naturally gold going to $200 an ounce without it going an awful lot higher first. Keep in mind, gold is cash. Currency is trash. All right? That's the main thing about this. Gold is a money. It meets the qualifications and the definitions of a money. So does silver. Currency does not. Currency meets all but one, and that's that it's a store of value, which it isn't, obviously, because it can be created from nothing at will, on the whim of people. And so, expressing the value of gold in dollar terms is sort of fraudulent. I like to express the value of gold in terms of real things like a fine suit. If you went back to before the Depression, back in the 20s, an ounce of gold bought you a fine suit. You take an ounce of gold to your tailor today, and you're probably going to be able to get a pretty nice suit. It might not be the best one out there, but you know what? The $20 gold piece back in the 1920s didn't buy you the best one either. But they both bought you a nice suit of clothes. And they both will today. A silver dollar, 2 of those in 64 before they went off the silver standard for coinage. 2 silver dollars would fill the family car. Today, about the same thing.
That's right.
It holds its purchasing power. That it's a store of value. The currency meets all the other definitions except for that one. And people could note the currency doesn't have perceived value, although some people say, well, yeah, it does, because you can go into a mini mart and exchange, 2 pieces of paper for a bottle of soda. But perceived value, yeah, that works only as long as this hegemony thing continues. So look to gold, look to silver, think of them as cash. It's breaking the mental model. I understand that. It's even for people, even me, I sit there, well, gold's down at $12.50 an ounce, or it's up to $13.30. We all do it, every one of us. So I'm not picking at anybody here, because I do the same thing. Try to rein yourself in, though, and think of it in terms of its purchasing power, its store of value. Is it doing that? And if gold goes to $200 an ounce, chances are a fine suit of clothes is going to cost $200.
Yeah. Well, Harry Dent has said that he can see gold going down to $200. So my response to him was, well, fine. I said, I wouldn't mind gold going down to $200, provided I can buy a Corvette for $3,600.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's all relative.
Yeah,
I mean, if gold goes to $200, I'll buy myself a high performance Corvette for $5,000. Because back in I think it was 1980, I saw an ad in the Tulsa World newspaper that hold on, we have a problem with that. Do you want to plug that in? Plug it in. There was an ad by the major Chevy dealership here in Tulsa at the time, and it said. Gave the price of the Chevy. I don't remember the price, but I do remember the subheading. It said, or this was an Impala 4-door sedan, fully equipped back about 1980-ish, and it said 4 gold coins. And that was right, because it was around $3,500 or $30, and gold was going for around $850 an ounce at the time. So it was around a little over $3,000. That's how much you can buy it for gold coins. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to buy a high-end car for 4 gold coins. Now that makes sense, because at $10,000 an ounce, that'll be $40,000. That'll buy me a nice car, and I think that's correct. But I think everything else has to correct with it.
Yeah, I mean, saying that gold's going to go to 200 and everything else is going to remain where it is now, I don't think that's going to happen. Let me put it this way: if that does happen, there will be no physical gold to be had.
Oh no! I mean, China would buy it at $1,000 an ounce.
Oh my God! Yeah, the Shanghai put would go into place.
That's it.
Around $1,000 wherever. You would not be able to acquire it at $200 an ounce, and that's the problem with these futures contracts. And frankly, if you ask me, and now keep in mind, you're talking to somebody who used to be in this business. I would outlaw futures contracts. I think they've outlived their purpose. They are used as nothing but tools of market manipulation. And, the corporate financiers will say, well, you're short-sighted because that helps us hedge against price changes. All right, then let's change it and make it this. If you buy a futures contract on gold, on oil, on wheat, whatever, guess what? You don't roll it over. You take delivery.
Yeah.
That's what the purpose of it was when they were invented.
Yeah, they don't do that anymore. No one takes
delivery.
You
take delivery. You don't sit there and roll it, and Goldman Sachs it, and roll it. You know what? And they're the worst. And then they sit there, that whole bunch of them, the J.P. Morgans, the Goldman Sachses, the Morgan Stanleys, they sit there. And Wells Fargo, let's not forget our money laundering friends from Wells Fargo. Go to Google. Find out which one of your big banks laundered $400 billion in Mexican drug cartel money. They're dealing in futures and pretending to be honest financiers. Give me a break. Really? I mean, this is not like cooked up, tinfoilhat.com news. This is mainstream news.
Yeah.
But they got caught doing this. Yeah. They paid a fine.
And let me get back on the track with Deutsche Bank. They're in real trouble, aren't they? And if they seem to have to close their doors or do something dramatic, it's going to affect all the banks in the EU. Will it not?
Yeah, not just the EU. It'll affect everybody. They have entanglements. I got a fantastic graphic up on the blog. It's a couple articles old now. You have to search for it, but just search for Deutsche Bank. You'll find it. it lists a map of the entanglements and the size of the entanglements. It'll affect banks on every continent except for the icy one down south at the pole. They're a big problem. They've done the same thing that Lehman Brothers has done. They've done the same thing that some of these other banks have done. They've made foolish bets. The bets have gone bad. And because they're so damn big, now we have to figure out how to cover this up, because we can't bail them in. Even though we'd love to and steal everybody's money, there's not enough money to bail them in.
When you say bail in, explain what bail in is for our listeners.
That would be if you took the depositor's money and used it as collateral against what the brokerage side has lost with its bad bets. There's not enough depositor money.
Yeah.
There isn't enough depositor money in the European Union to bail out that bank.
Yeah.
Bail in that bank, I'm sorry. So we can't let it fail. I have, through my friend Graham, who I write with, on good source, that they've been bailed out twice quietly already. This can't go to the next level, or it will bring the system down. It will be worse than 2008. You will wake up and it will be a different world.
Well, describe this world from your perspective. I mean, we know what happened in Greece and Cyprus, how bad things were there, and people are still suffering like no tomorrow.
Oh yeah,
they're worse than a third world country right now. But a total collapse will make things much worse, because there'll be no outside influence able to help, both parts of the system. Everyone will be in the same ship. How do you see that? How do you describe a situation where you have a Deutsche Bank folding under, bringing all the other banks, contagion, out banks going under, hellacious debt, companies closing down? I mean, how do you see that?
Well, I think the first thing that they would have to do is have a holiday.
Right.
Because there'd be a run on the banks. Everybody, once they figure it out. I mean, even in Cyprus, once they figured out what was going on, what did the people do? They ran the bank. The problem was it started on a Friday afternoon. They could only hit the ATMs. They couldn't really run the banks. They know this. So beware Friday afternoons. Not every Friday afternoon, obviously. I don't want you to become paranoid. But when these things happen from now on, they're going to happen over a weekend when you can't do a darn thing about it. So what you need to do is work now. You need to do your work now. You need to do your whatever position you want to take, whatever steps, measures, whatever you want to do, you need to do them now. You're talking about a total lockup or a near total lockup, no markets, no opening on the Dow, no opening on Wall Street. Everything's down, limit stop, that kind of stuff. 2008 Lehman, September 15th, 2008, all over again, probably several orders of magnitude worse. Would you be able to go to your bank and withdraw money? I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe. I advocate people keep a couple months' expenses in cash out of the bank.
Right.
Close to them.
Right.
Why? Because the banks aren't paying any interest anyway. They want to charge you negative interest.
Right.
So they're basically saying to you, you're going to pay us to store your money in our bank. Well, why the hell should I do that? I'm going to take the money out and I'm going to put it on, under a hill, under my mattress, whatever. Why should I keep it in a bank? There's no incentive. If interest rates were 10%, they could make the argument, but they can't. There's absolutely no reason other than convenience.
Yeah. I used to get interest on my checking account for Liberty Talk Radio. They gave you a little bit of interest, for having opening an account. And I just a few months ago, I couldn't balance. I was $10 off no matter what I did. And I called the bank. I said, I just can't balance it. They said, oh, there's a $10 fee now. I said, oh, now I'm paying you to give you my money to keep checking account. I said, oh my God. I said, it finally, everything came home to roost, So I was really upset at that. I said, well, I guess I have to pay because I need a checking account, So I have to pay for the privilege of giving them my money. So, and that's the only one that I do, and that all the others, I don't pay anything, So anyway, well, I'm concerned that there are so many, if people were somewhat awake, I can see where, maybe there's some sort of hope and a prayer of enough people being on solid footing here in the United States that we would weather a crisis. But it seems that there's practically no one. And if you mention crisis, they look at you like you're nuts, you're a negative person, you're a conspiracy nut. And they're still saying the dollar's as good as gold. How could that happen? Although they have no money. Just the other day, they came out with a statistic that said 70% of Americans have less than $1,000 in savings.
That sounds about right.
That's incredible. Absolutely incredible. Less than $1,000. That covers just your grocery bill for a couple of weeks.
Yeah, I mean, this is the difference between, and this is one of the reasons why we've had, in my opinion, this protracted crash where it's been stretched out over a long period of time. Because, I mean, if you went back and look at what happened in 2008, look at the parallels of 1929. Amazing parallels, huge speculative bubbles, leading up to it. One in financials, one in housing. Same difference. And then it popped. It went bad. And then not only worse, the Fed, in its infinite brutality, stepped on the throat of America for almost a decade. And the only way they'd let their throat off of America was if we agreed to go to war. Yes, that's how the Great Depression happened, people. I know that's not what you read in the little history books that they give your kids in the Common Core public school. I understand that. All right? If you go back and look at the actual hard data, you will see that the Fed absolutely stomped out money supply growth throughout. And remember, we're in a Keynesian system here for the most part. They stomped out money supply growth. And when you're in a fiat Keynesian system, money supply growth equals economic growth. They stomped that out. They kept their heel on our throats for the better part of the 1930s. And we accepted all sorts of socialism to get out of it. That didn't work. We were actually coming out of the Depression in 1931 and 1932 when they went and implied and imputed deflation upon us.
Right.
Now, normal people, you think, well, hey, that's a good thing. It makes your dollars more valuable. When you're used to a fiat system and you cut out the number of dollars in the system, you drop the number of dollars in the system, you're dropping aggregate demand. And you look at today, that's exactly what is going on. Look at an M3 growth. Look at a chart. M3 growth has shrunk from nearly 20% back in a decade ago to now near zero, 4, 5%, 3%, 2%.
Now explain M3 for our listeners, because I'm sure
that's your broadest monetary aggregate. That's all the dollars in the system. Basically, that's the layman's definition. So when you keep that down, when you keep that held in check, what that does in a fiat system, again, we're not talking gold-backed system, we're talking about a paper currency-backed system. When you suppress monetary growth, you suppress economic growth. And they have been doing that deliberately. We did it here from the end of 2009 through the beginning of 2011, and they kind of panicked a little bit, and then the U.S. government started borrowing money like crazy. They said basically, well, the American people aren't going to borrow the money, we'll borrow it for you. And whether they'll be willing to step in and do that again, or whether we're getting set for another attempt at a reset, that I can't tell you. I'm not sure. But M3 growth is very tepid at this point. Although consumer credit growth is healthy in their terms, it's growing steadily, it's going parabolic. All other forms of debt are growing parabolically, but yet the monetary supply, the money supply, that's not growing. So that's a little bit of a misnomer that we have going on here. So I'm suspicious right now. We'll know more later, but
yeah,
I worry about that. I mean, it's something I worry about, because in that kind of a system, when they deflate, your dollars that you have become worth more. But the problem is there's a scarcity of dollars, so that quenches demand. I hope everybody understands how that makes sense. If you don't have money, you can't go buy stuff.
Yeah. But
If
the
you
only
don't
way,
have,
the only way you can buy something is if you buy it on credit. Then.
yeah, and if you don't have the credit, what are you going to buy?
Yeah,
And that was the thing that happened in 2008. Not only did we have a financial catastrophe, we had a collapse in credit as well. Credit became less available. There was a huge contraction. So if you don't have cash, and you got all these buffoons like this clown that wrote this article, from the Minneapolis Fed, his former president there, he wants to get rid of cash. He thinks that having cash is actually infringing on the free market. Wow. I think everybody should go read that article. Seriously. I think that should be mandatory reading for anybody who wants to be, up to speed on what's going on. And then don't read the comments until last. Read the article first and see what you think of that, because it's pretty out there.
And where would you find that article?
You can find it on my blog, Andy
Okay.
Sutton comments. I posted that. I had to. It was sent to me. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Who's this guy? So I look at him. Oh wow, former Minneapolis Fed president, economic professor, blah blah blah, university, whatever, saying this kind of stuff. Wow. So it's a trial balloon. You've heard about the cashless society from many, many different places. Another mouthpiece now is talking about doing it. They want to get rid of cash. Once they get rid of cash, they totally control the economy.
Yeah. Andy, we have someone on the line, Andy. Hold on 1 second, please. Caller, you're on the line. Your first name, please. Caller, you're on the line. You're on the air.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Hello.
Hi, Joe. It's Joe again from Tom's River. I have one more question. Is that okay?
Fine. Go ahead. Fire away.
Okay. My question is to Andy, and I can't hear him. When he talks, he's all muffled. So after my question, I'll hang up and listen on the computer.
Okay.
My question is, out of Hillary and Trump, and I know neither one of them will be all that great for our economy, but which one does Andy think will be better for our economy, out of Hillary or Trump? And I'll hang up and listen to his answer on the computer. Thank you.
You are a mean person.
Very mean.
You have no conscience. You know that. Thank you. Anyway. Okay, Andy, it's all yours.
All right. Hey, well, you know what? That's perfect. This is the chance that I was looking for.
Because after this, the show's over. You know that.
Because after this, the show's over. There are 4 other candidates that can win the Oval Office. I think that by and large, the presidency is a figurehead position. They do what they're told. They champion programs. They dischampion, if that's a word, other programs. They push policy. These guys don't sit and come up with their own ideas, is the bottom line. I don't think either one of the two of them is fit to serve in any office. I wouldn't trust either one of them to be the dog catcher. I would seriously. And everybody says, well, you know what? You guys that vote third party, you're just throwing your vote away. Well, you know what? Here's the thing. If everybody who thought that actually went and threw their vote away, we might get somebody in a figurehead position who at least would talk some sense.
Right.
And maybe they get clipped. I don't know what to do. I mean, you got powerful people above them that set the rules. The thing that frightens me more about Clinton, and this is not an endorsement of the buffoon from Atlantic City. She's part of the establishment. I mean, she's Teflon, man. Nothing sticks to her. You've seen the stuff she's gotten away with. Benghazi, emails, all these crimes. Dead people. Dead people. All this stuff that's gone on surrounding her and her husband, and nothing has stuck to either one of them. Mm-hmm. They're dangerous people.
Yes.
I definitely wouldn't want them. I wouldn't want him either, because he's a buffoon. I mean, he got rich by using loopholes in the tax code. But everybody says, hey, the United States is going into bankruptcy, so maybe a guy like him would be beneficial.
Why not? Yeah, that sounds right.
But seriously, I would honestly look at the platforms of the Constitution Party, the Libertarian Party, I don't agree with anything the Green Party says, but I think that they ought to be invited to the debates
Right.
to argue their position like everybody else. And I think everybody ought to listen to what Lawrence Kolikoff has to say on Thursday, because I know he's got some very good points. And he's well respected in this field by myself, by Joe, by many other people. He's very well respected. He knows what he's talking about. When it comes to the economic stuff, you won't get any better than Larry Kolikoff. He is the best.
Yeah, he's been voted, the top 25 top 25 economists in the world.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Yeah, and he earns it. Yeah, he is awesome.
Yeah,
he knows his stuff.
He'll be on Thursday. He'll be on day after tomorrow on the show. Yeah.
I would encourage the same people that talked today to call back and ask him these questions, especially about the economic stuff, because, like I said, he truly is the gold standard.
In fact, Andy, if you're available, I'd love for you to call in and speak with him.
Unfortunately, I have to be at work on Thursday, but I'm going to try and listen.
Okay, very good.
Will you guys be looking at email on Thursday during the show?
Can we do that? Can we look at email during the show?
I'm sorry?
Can we look at email during the show?
During the show?
Yeah, we can do that. Yeah. Okay.
All right, I'll try it. I will try to listen if we're not crazy busy and send in a comment or a question here and there if I can.
Will you send the comments to comments@libertytalkradio.com?
I can do that.
Yeah,
Yep.
is that okay? Send comments. Okay, very good. Andy, we're just about out of time. It's the witching hour. I'd like to give you the last 30 seconds to wrap things up for us. And I want to thank you in advance for being our guest on our show today, and we look forward to seeing you again.
Absolutely. Thank you. I apologize for being a little bit feisty today. This is one of those.
Oh, I love it. I think it's great.
I've seen a lot of stuff here the past couple of days. It's really gotten my dander up, and we've been writing about it. We put out an article not too long ago, myself and Graham, about the housing bubble number 2.
Right. That's right. Yeah, we never got to that. Yeah.
That's all right. That's a minor issue at this point. They're trying desperately to reinflate the real estate bubble. So we put out an article about that. Not sure what the next one's going to be about yet. We're kind of kicking some things around here, but look for something from us soon. We're blogging in the meantime.
Okay.
www.andysutton.com is where you can find us.
Okay, very good, Andy. Thank you so much, and look forward to seeing you again.
Awesome. Thanks for being here and having me here, and I appreciate everything you do. Thank you.
Thank you. Folks, this is the end of today's broadcast. We'd like to thank our sponsors for the financial support, and we'd like to thank you for listening in. You can further the cause of liberty by recommending this program to your friends, and let us hear from you. Our email address is comments@libertytalkradio.com. Remember, as my wife would say, you're either allowing your liberties to be taken away or you're striving to protect them. Unfortunately, folks, there is no middle ground. Until next time, this is Joe Cristiano. You've been listening to Liberty Talk Radio. Stay well, stay tuned.